Hello and welcome to this video on creating a fruiting bonsai. In this video we'll take nursery stock and turn it into something that you can use as a bonsai tree for display. There are a number of species that tend to lend themselves to becoming bonsai better than others. Crabapples, cherries and some citruses are very good. Quince also works well. There are some that aren't so good. Notably some of the lemon species. This is largely because they have rather nasty thorns. If you find a variety that doesn't have thorns, then lemons can be a good option. There are also some berry species such as blueberries. Thankfully, other than the noteworthy things you need to care for with a fruiting bonsai we've mentioned in past videos, care for it is not that different. There are some things you need to be aware of. You can produce full-sized fruit with appropriate care and attention, but it will often be smaller anyway. Some species will need to be kept in a cool environment in order to fruit. They may still flower. There's also issues around just how tolerant they are of environmental factors. For example, how much cold or heat can they tolerate? In this case, we're going to go with a lemon. The lemon here doesn't have thorns, so we don't need to worry about it poking us. It will develop fruit, and the plant it was taken from to grow up was very good at producing flowers. You can see some of them developing on it now. From where it is now, we could either continue to try and train or style it, or we could plant it into a bonsai pot. For the purposes of this video, we'll put it in a bonsai pot. The usual processes are involved. Mesh across the bottom and wiring it in. Wires with which to tie the bonsai into the pot are then added. Soil, and then we add the tree itself. We then tie down the tree with the wire, tighten it, add soil over this, and that's it done for now. Once it's securely put in the pot, we can look at how we're going to begin styling it beyond that. With this, given the movement of the branches and the fact that it's not especially suited to any given style, we'll have to be a little more creative with how we're going to use it, or at least how we're going to move it around now that it's in the pot. By shifting it slightly, we can get the right angle for a style, or we could completely change how we're going to approach it. Say for example, turning it from an informal upright to a semi-cascade by having it grow out and away from the pot, rather than vertically. Now that we've got it positioned correctly, we can prune away any branches that aren't growing where they should be. Pruning is not going to be as important in these early stages with regards to the fruit tree as a fruiting tree. Rather, we're going to prune for style at this stage. In order to do that, you take away any branches that are growing directly down or directly up. You also prune any that are not in the desired place. In the next year or so, once growth has started and it's beginning to become established in the way we want it to be and in the style we want, we'll need to change pruning, going from focusing on pure style to pruning to allow for the proper growth for fruit formation. Since this was taken as a cutting from a much larger and more established tree, we're able to expect fruit much sooner than if it was growing from new stock. The big considerations are which of the branches are going to stay and which of those will have fruit growing on them. Is it only new growth or established growth? With apple trees, it's branches from last year that we need to have. In the case of a lemon, it's new growth. So we can prune away any large, unneeded or unwanted branches or cut them right back. As it is at the moment, we'll need to look at pruning it in order to have it ready for spring. So we take away that growth now, as once spring arrives, the tree will pick up growth and fix any of the damage we do through pruning. Because the tree is entering dormancy, this is the optimal time for that as well. There's no movement of sap, which would exacerbate problems. Repotting it now also adds the opportunity that once it starts growing again, it will start drawing on all the fertilizer that's in the soil in its new pot. It will need to be put into a sunny position and watered regularly. This will help to ensure not only does the tree get warmed up and awaken or come out of dormancy, but that the moisture in the pot isn't too much, an especially important consideration when it comes to citrus. From here, we can leave it be to grow for the next few weeks, until we see whether or not it's taking in its new pot, the growth is developing correctly, and if flower buds are beginning to develop. Once we see that it's starting to grow, we should put wire on the fruit tree. This will ensure that not only do we have the branches moving correctly, but that we're not going to waste wire on a tree that's only going to up and die on us. Importantly, with fruit trees, you don't want them to always point down. The ends of the branches must always poke back up to ensure that the tree understands that it's still trying to grow upwards, even if it's not growing actually upwards. That may sound odd. If branches droop down towards the ground, the tree will think something is wrong and it will not do as well. If the branch ends point upwards at the end, the plant will think it's trying to grow up towards the light. This means it will always put on new growth and continue trying to grow the ends of the branches out. That means sap will always flow right along. It's one small trick you can use to try and encourage growth, and you can really only do this if you wire the branches. It's one reason to wait until you are sure that your fruiting bonsai has actually taken to its new pot and is developing. From here, we may either get fruit this year, given the very specifically selected stock, or we may have to wait several years for fruit to develop. It is something of a random chance as to exactly which will happen. In many cases, if this is a new plant brought from a nursery specifically to turn into a bonsai, you may need to wait. Often those trees are quite young and aren't yet ready to fruit. Conversely, if it is from a bonsai nursery, that may be older stock, and may already be suitable enough to start growing fruit and flowers on it. Just be a little bit patient. Fruiting bonsai take a little more time to get exactly where you want them to go than other species do. Thank you for watching this video. If you have found it interesting, consider liking, sharing, and subscribing. Please post any comments, questions, or suggestions that you have below.